Good evening. It's Monday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. Like my disguise. Um, I'm going to talk about, coincidentally, Valentine's Day, about the issue of being wanted and unwanted, uh, particularly as regards to employment. Okay, this is a sort of a continuation of my rant the other day about the ceramics job. When a college or university posts their their job search, they they're listing what they want. They have their minimum qualifications. Uh, don't bother us if you don't have any, if you don't have all of these things that you can check off. And they have their preferred qualifications. And the preferred ones can be sort of a challenge because in some cases they're unrealistic, or they're but as the applicant they can be daunting. So for instance, a few years ago, KU had a ceramics position open, and they, in their preferred qualifications, wanted someone with experience with 3D printers. That is to say, the ones that specifically work with ceramics. Um, and I've seen a few lectures and talked to listened to a talk by John Pelestre and so forth. So I know how little I know about 3D printing. And I must admit that was one of the things that was off-putting. For me anyway. It was like, oh, well, that's what they want. They don't want me. Okay, so if there are any candidates in the pool that have 3D printing tech experience, they're at the head of the line. Okay. Well, in part based on that, I didn't bother to apply. I felt unwanted. So unwanted that I wasn't even going to ask them, do you want me? Which can be a mistake. We get into situations where we say no to ourselves. Okay. If I'd been more of a guy in the classic guy model, I might have lied. Apparently, that's something that guys do a lot, is lie about their qualifications. It's one of the reasons they get jobs when equally qualified women don't. It's because they lied about some extra stuff and the women didn't. Or the women did like I did, which is to self-edit and to say, oh, well, if that's what you want, that's not me. Well, as it turned out, for whatever reason, at this KU job, they ended up hiring someone local who, as far as I know, had no 3D printing experience. So either their applicant pool didn't have anyone, or the people that had 3D experience had other flaws that somehow the university didn't want to hire. Okay, so it's Valentine's Day. There's this whole sense that if someone is conducting a job search, only one of the people is going to have a happy conclusion to the process. Everyone else is going to end up feeling unwanted, whether they were so unwanted they didn't apply at all, or they were so unwanted that they didn't make the final 20, or they were so unwanted that they didn't get a campus interview, or the top of the list, they were one of the people interviewed and were not selected. Coincidentally, my mother had a experience like this where she was one of 4 people interviewed, and in the end, none of them got the job. The institution decided that it was a failed search. And I asked my mom if she felt insulted by that. And she said, no, I'm actually sort of grateful. And I said, what? Grateful? Well, if the 4 of them, if they couldn't agree on any of the 4, it means that they can't agree on hardly anything. which means it's a toxic place to work for. You don't want to work someplace where the members of a search committee cannot set aside their wants and agree on someone who meets most of their wants. Okay. Another thing that comes up with this is the situation where you're competing against someone that the institution really, really, really wants, which is usually a local person that's already on the payroll that they're trying to give a promotion to or a new job to. Only the rules require that they conduct a search. At KU, I think unless there are at least 9 applicants, it's not considered a fully legitimate search. It doesn't matter that the other 8 are just for show and that they really want candidate number 9 or candidate number 1, however you think about it. So in that case, potentially there's a small chance that you could somehow look better than the local favorite. But mostly you're just there to meet other people's needs for an applicant. It's not about whether you're wantable or unwantable. The decision was made before the job search was put up, and you were just abused. You were just going through all that trouble for practice. So, all that sounds very dire and so forth, and everybody wants to be wanted, except I am reminded, like my mother, not wanting to be wanted by that institution was a blessing, that there are many times when we can think of situations in which we are happy not to be wanted. The policeman lights up his lights somewhere behind you and, no, he wanted some other driver. Or some child is screaming for their mother, and it's not you. The child wants someone else. Or there's that, romantic interest that's just way too much like a stalker. So this whole wanting and being wanted and unwanted, we have to take it with some strength and to realize that it's not always a good thing to be wanted. There are occasionally upsides to not being the wanted. Anyway, have a good evening.